Discipline is freedom. 3 words that can change your life. It's not your feelings that determine your destiny, but what you do in spite of them. While others wait for motivation, you build a life that makes you independent. You don't have to prove anything to anyone but yourself. Every day you act, even when you don't feel like it, is a quiet triumph, not loud, but powerful. In a world full of distractions, discipline is rebellion. It's not harsh, it's liberating, because it shows you that you have control, even when everything around you is shaking. It's not a talent or a gift, it's a choice, and that choice begins today, with you. Chapter 1. The truth about discipline. You don't need motivation. You wake up, the alarm rings, it's still dark outside. Your bed is warm, your body is tired, and suddenly you start negotiating with yourself. Just 5 more minutes. But those 5 minutes turn into 20, and what you intended to do is left undone once again. Sound familiar? If so, your problem isn't the desire, but the action. This is where the hard truth reveals itself. Discipline has nothing to do with motivation. Motivation is a feeling, fleeting, unreliable, dependent on your mood, sleep, or the weather. Discipline, on the other hand, is a decision, an attitude. It doesn't ask if you feel like it. It only asks what is the right thing to do. And then it does it, regardless of how you feel. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "If you want to achieve something, be prepared to do what is necessary and do it daily." Not when you're motivated, not when the circumstances are perfect, but every single day. True strength isn't shown in moments of enthusiasm, but in consistency despite internal resistance. Maybe you're waiting for that one push, that spark to get you going. But what if it never comes, or only rarely? Do you really want to leave your future to a feeling as fickle as April weather? Think of a craftsman. He gets up in the morning whether he feels like it or not. He swings his hammer, mixes concrete, carries materials, not out of euphoria, but because he knows that if he doesn't work today, nothing will be built tomorrow. Discipline is like this daily construction, unspectacular but crucial. If you wait to be motivated, you'll only move when everything is perfect. But discipline gets you moving even when everything inside you rebels. It's like a muscle, weak at first, but it grows with every repetition. The more you push through your reluctance, the less you'll need to debate with yourself. Start asking, what would a disciplined person do? And then act accordingly, not tomorrow, but now, especially when you don't feel like it. The difference between those who reach their goals and those who only talk about them is rarely talent. It's almost always the willingness to act even when it's hard. Imagine being independent of your mood, free from hesitation. You would be someone you can rely on, always. This isn't a fantasy. It's the effect of small, daily decisions against your inner resistance. You don't need more motivation, you need more clarity. And that clarity comes when you understand that discipline isn't a burden. It's self-respect in action. End the internal dialogue. Act, and create a life built on reliability, not on whims. Chapter 2. The Stoic Root of Discipline. Imagine a rock in a storm. The wind howls, waves crash against it, yet it remains unmoved. This is the Stoic ideal, inner fortitude. They called it apatheia, a state where you are not disturbed by external events. This is where true discipline begins, not in the action itself, but in the mindset behind it. Stoicism teaches that we should be guided by reason, logos, not by impulses or moods. You act because you recognize it's the right thing to do, not because you feel like it. This mindset transforms discipline from a rigid duty into a conscious choice. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You are not the victim of your thoughts, but their master. Whoever understands this begins to take themselves seriously. You are not your laziness. You are not your hesitation. You are the one who can decide." This is the key. Discipline isn't a fight against yourself, but a return to your true self. The Stoics saw daily life as a training ground. Every morning was an opportunity to test yourself, not with grand words, but with deeds. Get up earlier, not because you have to, but because you want your mind to rule over your body. Consciously give up comfort to cultivate your inner strength. Seneca recommended voluntarily putting oneself into situations that cause discomfort. Cold water, simple clothing, plain food, not out of asceticism, but to prove to yourself, I don't need much to be myself. These exercises are not a game, they shape character. Discipline is sharpened in these moments like a sword. The more often you face small challenges, the more your trust in yourself grows. You realize, I can lead myself. And here lies the power. When you begin to organize your life by principles instead of spontaneous desires, a stability arises that can no longer be shaken. You are no longer tossed around by every feeling. Instead, you decide what is important today, and then you follow through. That is the Stoic root of true discipline. Not pressure, but clarity. Not self-denial, but self-respect. What still seems difficult today becomes easy through repetition. And what becomes easy eventually becomes part of your identity. No longer, I try to be disciplined, but I am someone who does what is necessary. Discipline is then no longer an act, but the expression of your nature. And this nature, as the Stoics said, is rational, steadfast, calm, and capable of greatness. Chapter 3. The Art of Giving Yourself Orders. There are two types of people: those who constantly wait for instructions from the outside, and those who lead themselves. The latter are rare, but they are the ones you admire. They appear calm, clear, determined, not because they have no doubts, but because they have learned to give themselves orders and to follow them. Commanding yourself is not a question of pride, but of responsibility. You take the wheel of your life and stop reacting to external circumstances like a leaf in the wind. You say, I'll do this now, and you do it. No discussion, no drama. Most people have a constant inner dialogue. Should I really? Maybe later. I don't have the energy today. This noise in your head is the enemy of clear decisions. If you want to lead yourself, you must learn to silence the chatter and act. Not someday, now. The Roman emperor and Stoic Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Get up, be no longer a slave to your thoughts. You were born to act." This sentence holds a truth that is uncomfortable. You have everything you need. You lack no knowledge and you lack no talent. You only lack the determination to carry out your decisions. But how do you manage to lead yourself when the inner resistance is great? The first step is to change your language. Instead of asking yourself if you should do something, give yourself clear instructions. Not, I should work out again, but I am putting on my workout clothes now and heading out. This clarity changes everything. The mind follows the direction you give it. The more often you give yourself precise and simple commands and follow them, the faster you build trust in yourself. You realize, I am someone who acts. I rely on myself. Discipline arises exactly here, in this conscious self-direction, and it grows every time you don't argue, but act. In the moment when you make a decision and follow through, you strengthen not only your will, but also your identity. Epictetus said, "He who does not command himself will constantly have to obey others." A radical statement, but true. If you don't give yourself direction, others will do it for you. Your boss, your environment, your moods, your fears. Self-leadership, therefore, means not only control, but freedom. You become the architect of your life. You set priorities, follow through, and with each step, learn that you have more strength than you previously believed. What you need today is not a new plan, not a new strategy, not a to-do list. What you need is the courage to give yourself a clear order and carry it out. No excuses, no loopholes, no retreat. The moment you do that is the moment you begin to take yourself seriously. And it's precisely then that discipline stops being a concept and becomes your lived everyday life. Chapter 4. Separate decision from emotion. You know what you should do, but you don't do it. Why? Because you're waiting until you feel like it. But feelings are like weather. Sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy, sometimes completely unpredictable. If your decisions are tied to your mood, you will never act consistently. This is where one of the most powerful lessons of Stoicism lies. Act despite your feelings, not against yourself, but for your higher self. The Stoics strictly separated what they felt from what they did. They knew you can feel weak and still act strong. The great Roman philosopher Seneca wrote, "A wise man does not base his actions on how he feels, but on what is reasonable." It sounds sober, and in that lies its power. Discipline begins when you stop waiting for the perfect moment. It will not come. There will always be distractions, fatigue, doubt, inner voices saying, "Not today." It is precisely in these moments that everything is decided, not through overcoming great obstacles, but through the simple, clear resolve, "I'll do it anyway." This ability to make decisions independently of emotion can be trained. You can practice it in small things. Get up when the alarm rings. Say no when you mean it. Keep your word, even when it's uncomfortable. Your feelings deserve attention, but not the final say. You can acknowledge them without giving them control. They come and go like clouds. But your values, your principles, your goals, those should remain. What would happen if you made your decisions purely based on clarity and purpose? If you acted because you decided to, not because it felt right? You would build momentum and trust in yourself, in your direction. An example, you want to read every day, but today you're tired. If you follow the feeling, you put the book away. If you follow your decision, you read anyway, even if it's just 2 pages. And those 2 pages make you stronger tomorrow. Because every small victory over emotion is a reminder of who you really are, not the person who acts on impulse, but the one who chooses consciously. The Stoic doesn't control the world, but he controls himself. And that begins in the very second when you acknowledge the feeling, but do not obey it. When you say, "I hear you, but I continue," you don't become disciplined by feeling good. You become disciplined by deciding well, regardless of how you feel. Chapter 5. Many actions, maximum impact. Big goals rarely fail due to lack of willpower, but because of the wrong idea of how to start. You wait for the perfect moment, for enough time, for the right spark, and that's exactly why nothing happens. The trick doesn't lie in the big things, it lies in the small. Discipline is not built by monuments, but by tiny stones you move every day. Imagine you want to write a book, not this month, not this year, just someday. So nothing happens. And now imagine you write only 100 words a day. 1 year later, you've written over 66,000 words. Without pressure, without drama, Epictetus would have said, "Act in small things as if the world depended on them." Why? Because it does. Your habits, not your visions, shape your reality. 1 push-up in the morning, 1 page read, a glass of water right after waking up. Tiny actions seem insignificant, but they are the cement of your identity. With every repetition, you're telling yourself, "I'm someone who takes action." Many people underestimate this effect. They think, "That's pointless." And that's exactly the thinking error. It's not about the outcome. It's about the behavior. You're conditioning yourself to turn decisions into actions without debate, without delay. Small actions bypass internal resistance. They sidestep the inertia that sets in when a task seems too big. No one fails at the first step. We fail by trying to walk the entire path at once. Seneca also knew consistent, purposeful action brings more than grand gestures made at irregular intervals. This applies especially to discipline. It's better to meditate 5 minutes every day than 1 hour once a month. Through these mini actions, a pull begins. You start walking, and suddenly you stay in motion, because action generates clarity, not the other way around. Once you begin, everything becomes easier. The internal resistance quiets down. So instead of overwhelming yourself, build systems you can carry out every day, even on bad days, especially on bad days, because that's when it counts. A simple principle helps. Make it so small that you can't say no. Want to start working out? Put on your workout clothes. That's it. The chance that you'll do a few more minutes anyway is huge. And even if not, you started. And that's the point. These mini actions are not a means to an end. They are the end because they shape you, because they prove to you that you're a person who moves. Big change is nothing more than the result of many small decisions, carried out, repeated, internalized. So stop waiting. Start small, but start today. Chapter 6. Train discipline in the comfort zone. Before life puts you to the test, you should test yourself. Not because you're afraid, but because you want to be prepared. Most people only build strength when they're forced to, but you don't have to wait until something happens. You can become strong voluntarily, in the middle of everyday life, in the middle of your comfort zone. Strength doesn't grow where it's comfortable. It arises in conscious renunciation, in the no to short-term pleasure, in the yes to challenge, even though you could take the easy way. Discipline doesn't develop through constant self-optimization, but through targeted friction, through building small resistances into your usual life. The Stoics knew this. Seneca advised his students to regularly forego luxury, even if they could afford it, cold water instead of warm baths, plain bread instead of a feast, not out of masochism, but to remind themselves that one needs less than one thinks, and that one is stronger than one believes. This practice has a double effect. On the one hand, you strengthen your mind. You learn that you have control over your impulses. On the other, you build mental reserves for times when that control really costs you something. When life hits hard, you're prepared because you've already practiced the pain voluntarily. Imagine you decide not to eat sugar for a week. That's uncomfortable, but it shows you how often you reach out of habit, not out of necessity. Or you deliberately leave the house 5 minutes earlier in the morning, not because you have to, but to prove to yourself that you control your rhythm. These mini challenges are like weights for the brain. Discipline is like a muscle. It doesn't grow without resistance. If you only ever do what's pleasant, you weaken your will. If you regularly and consciously choose against the easy path, you strengthen it. It's important not to overdo it. You don't have to live like an ascetic. But you should, from time to time, consciously give up something you're entitled to, precisely because you could have it. That's true self-leadership. This attitude changes your self-image. You are no longer the victim of your comfort zone. You are the director of your behavior. You decide when to give in and when not to. And that gives you an inner stability that is hardly shaken anymore. So ask yourself, where can you deliberately build in a little resistance today? What comfort can you leave behind just for today? And what would happen if you did that regularly? Maybe you'll discover that you have far more control than you thought, and that true discipline doesn't arise when you have to fight, but when you choose to challenge yourself while everything is still calm. Chapter 7. Failure is part of the plan. No one likes to talk about failure, yet it is exactly the place where true discipline is born, not when everything works, but when everything threatens to fall apart, and you keep going anyway. Mistakes are not the enemy of discipline, they are its teacher. Imagine a fighter in the ring. He gets hit, falls to the ground, stands up again. Not because he is invincible, but because he has decided not to give up. That moment, getting back up, is the very definition of disciplined strength. You will also experience setbacks in your life. You'll make up excuses, throw plans overboard, break habits, and that is not the end. It is part of the path. The Stoics knew life is not a cleanly planned project. It is chaotic, uncontrollable, unpredictable, and precisely in that lies the test. What do you do when everything goes differently than planned? Do you surrender, or do you adapt and move on? Epictetus taught, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our view of them. Failure is only a problem if you see it as one. If you believe that a setback is a sign of weakness, you will resign. If you see it as feedback, as part of your development, you will grow. Most people don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because they believe, after the first stumble, it's pointless to go on. But that moment is an invitation to realign, to question yourself, to begin again, smarter, more consciously, more clearly. Discipline doesn't mean being perfect. Discipline means not giving up after a misstep. It's not about making no mistakes. It's about not letting those mistakes define you. A lost day does not mean a lost goal. It simply means you start again tomorrow, not from zero, but with experience. Many confuse setbacks with failure, but every failure is a natural part of growth. When you run, you'll stumble eventually, but you don't learn to walk by avoiding it. You learn by getting back up, again and again. And this is where true discipline reveals itself. Not in the glory of success, but in how you handle imperfection, in the humility to admit mistakes, in the determination to learn from them, in the willingness to keep going, undeterred. The more often you get back up after a failure, the less power those setbacks have over you. You take away their weight. You recognize they're just part of the journey, not a judgment on your worth. So don't ask yourself how to avoid failure. Ask yourself how you want to deal with it when it comes. Because it will come, and you'll be ready, not perfect, but steadfast, not invincible, but unstoppable. Chapter 8. The Power of Identity. You are what you do every day. Who you are is not shown by what you say, but by what you repeatedly do. Your behavior shapes your identity, not the other way around. You don't become disciplined because you intend to be. You become disciplined because you act every day as if you already are. And here lies the true turning point. You no longer wait to feel an inner change. You start acting as if you are already the person you want to become. With every step, this new self-image becomes more solid. It's like a muscle that grows through use. A single day may mean little, but in the sum of all small decisions, your true identity is hidden. If you make your bed every day, show up on time, and keep your word, even in small things, then you're not just forming habits, you're shaping character. The Stoics understood this in a profound way. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "That on which you repeatedly focus, in that you will become." Your focus determines which version of you becomes stronger. If you decide against comfort every day, it's not only your will that grows, but also your self-image. You begin to trust yourself. Imagine you want to be someone who writes daily. You start with 10 minutes a day. At first, hesitant, maybe doubtful. But the more you repeat it, the less foreign it feels. At some point, you no longer say, "I try to write." You say, "I am someone who writes." And that's where the power lies. You're no longer acting against your old self-image. You're strengthening your new one. Every small act of discipline confirms to you, I'm someone who does what is necessary. This inner image becomes the foundation of your actions, not the other way around. Many try to first change internally before they act, but that's a fallacy. The faster path goes through action. Doing changes thinking, not the other way around. If you make daily decisions that match the identity of a disciplined person, the feeling of conviction will follow naturally. That's why it's crucial how you talk about yourself. Don't say, "I'm undisciplined." Say, "I'm training my discipline." Words shape reality. And if you treat yourself like someone who is reliable, you will begin to act that way. This inner transformation is not a matter of chance. It's a process. And it begins with every small step, repeated, reliable, without drama. The effect is profound. You no longer need constant motivation. You don't have to push yourself anew every day. You are simply someone who acts, no matter how you feel. And that is true freedom. You won't become a new person overnight, but with every action, you become a stronger version of yourself. Not through words, through deeds. Daily. Closing thoughts. What you do not control will control you. You don't need perfect discipline. You just need the courage to start today, again and again. Your excuses do not decide your life. Your actions do. Discipline is not coercion. It is self-respect in motion. It doesn't come from motivation. It comes from clarity. You are not the product of your moods. You are the result of your decisions. Remember, every small step counts. Every moment in which you lead yourself shapes your identity. You are stronger than you think and freer than you believe. Don't wait until you're ready. Act now. Because with each disciplined day, you become more of the person you want to be. Decisions create reality, and yours begins today. Thank you for listening. Let me know how you like this longer form of videos.